The Cliff Ravenscraft Show, episode number 439.
Hi there, this is Ray Edwards from rayedwards.com, and there's only one guy I trust to answer my questions about podcasting, and that is, of course, the podcast answer man, Cliff Ravenscraft.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, aka the Podcast Answer Man, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to helping you take your message, your business, and your life to the next level. That's right, my friends. It does not matter if you are brand new to this online content creating world we live in, or if you've been creating content for many years. There's something we can all do to take everything we do in life to the next level. And my friends, it feels so good to open the show the way that I just did. And right here out of the gate, just want to lay on a big ol' announcement on you, if you don't mind. Effective immediately, I am shutting down a podcast that is currently, or was currently, titled The Cliff Ravenscraft Show. That's the one that was previously known as Pursuing a Balanced Life. And after 659 episodes, that audio podcast has come to an end. That happened this week. Now, I've also decided that the Podcast Answer Man, this podcast, and the Cliff Ravenscraft Show are merging into a single audio podcast. Now, if you want a little bit of a backstory into what has led up to this decision, I'm not going to rehash all of the stuff that has already been shared just a few episodes back. You can check out episode number 432 and episode number 433. Those episodes were titled The Year of Identity Part 1 and The Year of Identity Part 2. And I'm tempted to call this The Year of Identity Part 3, although I don't think that it's absolutely required that you hear those first two episodes to listen to this one, and I don't want people to not tune into this episode because it's listed as a Part 3, so I might come up with a different title for it. But anyway, big announcement here that moving forward, the Podcast Answer Man, this podcast from this point forward, is going to be known as The Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And it's hosted by me, Cliff Ravenscraft. And yes, I am known internationally around the world as the Podcast Answer Man. So why the change in this content strategy? You know, in the episodes that I just talked about, the Year of Identity Part 1 and Part 2, I talked about how I came down into the studio early one morning and made this rash decision to merge my Pursuing a Balanced Life podcast and the Podcast Answer Man podcast into a single podcast from that point forward, and that the new show was going to be called The Cliff Ravenscraft Show. I also shared the advice that I had received from most of my mastermind group and also the advice that I received from my wife, Stephanie. And just for the record, my friend Ray Edwards, who is also a member of my mastermind group, was not on the call the day that I was seeking some advice, but he had later listened to the recording of the call from the mastermind group. And he had also listened to the episode of Family from the Heart where Stephanie had given me her advice. And even Ray felt very strongly that I should go with Stephanie's advice. However, I ended up going with the advice that came from the majority of my mastermind group, and I decided to keep the two shows separate. I had decided that Podcast Answer Man, this podcast, would become solely focused on the ins and outs of podcasting moving forward. I also had decided that I was going to immediately rebrand the podcast that I used to do called Pursuing a Balanced Life, and it was just going to rebrand to The Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And this podcast would allow me to explore any topic that I wanted that was on my heart to share with my community. Whereas I felt like even with Podcast Answer Man, I was kind of tied to just talking about podcasting. In fact, there's been many times that I've brought content here to Podcast Answer Man that wasn't directly related to podcasting. It might have been a big, huge business decision. It might have been something where I'm like, guys, you know what? I've been so focused on my business over the last 7 years of my life, and I've allowed myself to get so physically out of control. And I want to talk to you about what I'm doing moving forward in my year of fitness. And I'm going to make a commitment here. I just want to tell you guys about it. I'm excited about it and passionate about it. And I think this is important for me to share. And of course, I would share some of those things that weren't technical podcast related things. And the next thing I notice is that all of a sudden I get these 1-star reviews in iTunes for the podcast that says, hey, the content's somewhat okay, but it's not about podcasting. It doesn't live up to its name. And it's bringing down the ratings of my podcast as a result of people thinking, hey, this podcast isn't all about podcasting, and almost as if I'm being deceptive with my branding. And so I didn't like that. And so I had made that decision that, we're going to keep these 2 shows separate. I'm going to just go ahead and create the Cliff Ravenscraft show. It's going to be the show where I talk about entrepreneurship, building your business and taking it to the next level, about how to balance between family and faith and life and all of this other stuff. And so many other things that are more important than just the RSS feeds and the equipment and what cables you need and how to get the best quality of sound and all of those other things, which, by the way, are important to me as well. But I just felt like my hands were tied. And so that's why I had decided, and for those of you who didn't listen to the Year of Identity Part 1 and 2, I just pretty much summed up 2 hours worth of content right there for you. And that's why, again, I'm not going to title this one The Year of Identity Part 3 like I originally thought. That's the backstory. But there are 2 significant things that have happened in my life over the last couple of weeks that helped me to clearly understand why I need to follow the advice that my wife, Stephanie, and even Ray Edwards had given me. The 2 significant things that I'm referring to are Snapchat and my trip to New Zealand. Now, in last week's episode, I had shared with you guys why I had fallen in love with Snapchat. But before Snapchat came along, I was pretty excited about the decision that I had come to keep these 2 shows separate. The only thing that I wasn't excited about was the fact that I still would have 2 solo-hosted audio podcasts. Knowing that for each of these shows to be successful, I would need to consistently produce a weekly episode for both podcasts. I have to tell you, I was not crazy about this idea of coming up with 2 solo-hosted, highly valuable episodes every single week. However, I do have this motto that I live by that says, I don't need easy, I just need worth it. And I had convinced myself that doing 2 separate shows and keeping them up weekly would be worth it. Now, before I left for New Zealand, I had recorded a total of 6 episodes of Podcast Answer Man. I had done all the editing on those shows all together, batched processed them, and had scheduled them so that they would automatically be released for 6 weeks in a row, leading up to and going through my entire trip while I was in New Zealand. I had also decided to make a full commitment that I would do the same for the Cliff Ravenscraft show, the other podcast, the one that used to be called Pursuing a Balanced Life. However, I had not yet officially announced to that audience that I was committing to a weekly schedule. But I did produce 3 batch processed weekly episodes for the Cliff Ravenscraft show following the Year of Identity Part 2, which meant that I had maintained a weekly schedule ever since the rebranding of that podcast. And I wanted that to continue. Here's where Snapchat came in. On Wednesday, January 27th, I decided to give Snapchat a try and take it seriously. On Thursday, January 28th, I decided to take it even more seriously. On January 29th, yes, if it was even possible, I took it even more seriously. And by the end of Friday, January 29th, I had fallen in love with Snapchat. And on Saturday, January 30th, I had a thought that came to me. What if I were to take the video downloads of my Snapchat stories and turn them into vlog posts? The original idea was that I would actually create just a whole separate video podcast for the vlog. But then I'm thinking, well, I don't know if I really want to create another thing that I'm going to ask people to subscribe to. I had already told people who are listening and subscribe to Podcast Answer Man, hey, if you want to get something besides the technical stuff and the things that you've grown to love about the Podcast Answer Man, I'm moving a lot of that content over here to the Cliff Ravenscraft show. And then all of a sudden, then I've asked people to subscribe to 2 different shows. And then all of a sudden, there's this vlog that I want to do, and I'm going to create it. And I'm not even sure if I'm fully committed to the vlog because it's vertical video and I haven't figured out a great way to do horizontal video or landscape video, and there's audio syncing issues and all this other stuff, and there's other things that I need to worry about here. But for now, what happened was I decided, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and take these video downloads from Snapchat, and I'm going to drop them in as video feeds in between the audio episodes that I'll put into the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, just to give it a try, just to see what happens. So in episode number 639 of the show that used to be called the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I know this is confusing. In episode number 639 of that podcast, I had taken the 3 video vlog posts and made it one long video episode and released that as a video episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And yes, it is possible for you to take a video file and put it out as a video episode into what has normally always been an audio podcast feed. The reality is that it doesn't matter, right? You can put an audio file in, you can put a video file in, you can go back and forth. Even this podcast over the years has had video episodes in it. Podcast Answer Man, in the archives, there are several episodes that are video episodes. I do not recommend that you do this, by the way. I highly discourage you from doing this. And the reason why, and I found out just recently, a lot of people are using either the Overcast podcast application or they're using Stitcher Radio. Both of those apps are audio only. And here's what happened for the folks that were on Overcast. Week after week after week, there are episodes piling up of these video episodes, because I was actually putting out my daily vlog entries every single day into the Cliff Ravenscraft feed. And so there was all these episodes building up, but the people who were subscribed to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show in Overcast were emailing me and say, Cliff, why isn't there any new episodes? It's been 2 or 3 weeks and I haven't seen anything. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's all these video episodes. I don't see a thing. And the reason why is because Overcast is an audio-only podcasting application. You cannot get video files to show up there. Those folks didn't even know that I was even doing a test to see how this was working out. And then when it comes to all of those people who are subscribed to you via Stitcher, if you drop a video file into your podcast, what Stitcher will do is they'll take that video file and convert it to an audio-only file and then play that for them. And of course, when it comes to a vlog like what I'm doing, the audio alone isn't adequate to give you a full comprehension of everything that's going on that I'm trying to share. And so it's just not the right experience. And so I don't recommend that you put video episodes into an audio-only podcast or a show that's typically audio-only. On Sunday, January 31st, I started to record my next audio episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And in that episode, I was going to explain to everyone about why I was falling in love with Snapchat. And I was going to explain to everyone why I was putting video episodes into this audio podcast. And I was going to explain to them this is just a test. I'm not planning to do this long term. And I started to talk to them about Snapchat. And I realized as I was recording that podcast episode, man, I'm trying to explain to you Snapchat, and it's not making a lot of sense in audio. This is something I feel like I need to create a video tutorial on. And so right then and there, as I was recording that next episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I hit stop on the recorder. I deleted that about 25 minutes in. I deleted that episode, and instead I spent the next 2 hours creating a 40-minute truly awesome, high-quality Snapchat tutorial, which, by the way, you can find that at podcastanswerman.com/Snapchat if you haven't done so already. I encourage you to check it out. By this time, I ran out of time to record the audio episode that I wanted to for the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And since I had to leave town for a trip to Nashville, Tennessee, just before I left for my 2-week trip to New Zealand, and then also because I had not officially announced the commitment to a weekly schedule for the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I just decided, you know what, while I'm in New Zealand for the next 2 weeks, I think that I'm going to have some pretty visually appealing Snapchat content or vlog content. I'll just go ahead and continue to share my Snapchat stories until I get back from New Zealand. That was my thought. I didn't think that I was going to put every single episode of my Snapchat story out of there. Maybe I would just put maybe 3 to 4 or maybe even 5 out of a week that might make the cut. However, what I found is that the folks that are following me on Snapchat, they were telling me how each and every day I was getting feedback about how that day's content was so valuable to them. Something that I had shared had been so extremely inspirational or encouraging to them, and they consistently were giving this feedback, and every day I found myself uploading those vlog posts to the Cliff Ravenscraft show feed. Eventually, I got to the place where I was thinking that, the content that I'm sharing here in the vlog on a daily basis, it's exactly the type of content that I've had in my heart to share for years. I've had it in my heart to do an ongoing vlog, which, by the way, a vlog, if you don't know are familiar with the term, it's a video blog. But anyway, it's been on my heart to do a vlog going all the way back to May 28th, 2013. That's when I created my very first vlog episode on YouTube. Now, I had created a few days of vlog content on the YouTube channel back then, and I absolutely loved it. But the editing work was it was intense, and for some reason, it just didn't seem worth it at the time, and I stopped doing vlog updates just after a couple episodes. But then came Snapchat, and Snapchat made it super simple for me to get back into vlogging. I wasn't crazy about vertical video at all. However, the content that I was putting out on Snapchat was exactly what I have been called in my heart to give to the world. I know that sounds crazy, but it doesn't sound crazy. It's just what it is. It's what I've been sharing in my vlog on Snapchat on a daily basis is exactly the content that I feel most called to share in this world. And it's just little bits and pieces, experiences of my life, and little areas where I'll stop throughout the day and might share a thought or a couple thoughts throughout a day. I try to keep it as short as possible. I've had a couple vlog posts that have been 12 and 14 minutes, but my goal is to keep these things somewhere between 5 to 7 minutes. That's my goal. But this vlog content, this is having a powerful and positive impact on the lives of people that are consuming it. So as I shared, I continued to publish those daily vlog updates all the way until I got back from New Zealand, which I had anticipated. When I get back, I'm going to switch back over to the audio-only format and say, hey guys, thanks for putting up with my test, right? One thing that had crossed my mind, however, is that coming back from New Zealand, the idea of me not taking these Snapchat videos and putting them out as podcast episodes, it got me to thinking, I wonder if I'm going to feel as motivated to create these Snapchat stories, knowing that they're going to erase after 24 hours, because after 24 hours, your snaps are gone. And I didn't like that idea. I mean, the content that I'm creating is valuable, and I want to be able to refer back to it. And I wasn't uploading them just yet to YouTube because I was finding some problems with some of the encoding. And so for a brief period of time, I was putting them into that podcast feed that was the Cliff Ravenscraft show, and I was not uploading them to YouTube. Knowing that I did not like the idea of losing this content and not having it archived, I researched and found a process that works for me to download and then reprocess and upload every episode without audio syncing issues to YouTube. And also, by the way, I've actually even switched over to landscape format and found a way to make that work for me as well on Snapchat. All of this, by the way, is documented over the last couple weeks of Snapchat stories. And if you want, you can follow my Snapchat story over at cliffeotc.com. Again, that's cliffeotc.com. That will take you to the playlist for my vlog on YouTube. But like I was saying, I found this process. I've switched to landscape mode. I am now uploading super high quality Snapchat stories with no audio syncing issues. It's working great. They're all online on YouTube at cliffeotc.com. And by the way, I was so excited and so passionate about this that I took 25 days worth of Snapchat stories. It took me about 10 hours to do all of that, and I stayed up all night long one night. Even after my jet lag from coming back from New Zealand was over, I extended my jet lag an extra day just so I could stay up all night and get all 25 days worth of that content over there on the YouTube thing. Since doing all of that, I've continued to take Snapchat even more seriously. I'm even improving my approach to how I record and what I'm sharing and the length and all of that stuff. I'm starting to get really intentional about all of those things. And I am seeing a significant increase in the amount of feedback coming from people talking about the impact and the amount of influence that this content that I'm creating through Snapchat and then putting up on YouTube, how much of an influence this is having on a daily basis is mind-blowing. And it just got me fired up. Now, the thing is, though, is that's creating content on a daily basis. And then not only is it creating that content, but at the end of the evening, it's converting it and uploading it. But then when I started thinking about that and keeping up with that, which I'm like, man, I cannot imagine stopping this now. This has opened up the floodgate of some things inside of me. And I feel more led to do this on a daily basis, sharing things as they're raw, real, authentically happening at this very moment. Sharing things in the moment has been so rewarding that I just know that if I just write them down on a list of things that I'm going to talk about potentially in the next episode of an audio podcast, the next time I sit down and record, when I get to talk about those stories, it's not going to be the same. And sometimes I've noticed this, there are things that, man, I would love right now to share with my community, and I would write it down for a future topic. And the next thing I know is I get behind the microphone when it's time to record that podcast, and I'm like, oh, I'm not as excited about that right now. But boy, if I would have shared it when I was excited, I think it would have had a powerful impact. And I know this because of what's been going on with my Snapchat vlog and then sharing it on YouTube, which of course then also sharing it on Facebook. This content is getting around and it's having an impact, and it's gotten me real excited. But then all of a sudden I started to think, wait a second, I'm doing all of this and it's taking this amount of time to create this vlog. But then I'm also committing myself to recording a weekly episode of Podcast Answer Man and a weekly episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And I want all of this to have my standards of quality. Whoa. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I know there is one principle that I live by. When you say yes to adding something significant to your life, and when it comes to a priority or a commitment or something like that, it oftentimes means saying no to something else. And then this idea snuck into my brain again. What if I were to not do 2 audio episodes a week? What if I did go ahead and merge the Cliff Ravenscraft Show and the Podcast Answer Man? And once that thought crept right back into my mind, it would not let go. It was hanging on for dear life. It was like, listen, you've tried to get rid of me once and you thought you did, but I'm back and I'm here to stay. And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, what if the vlog stays and the other solo show goes? Then I thought, well, okay, obviously the solo show that I need to keep is the one with the most subscribers. The solo show that I need to keep is the one that's responsible for generating, well, let's just say almost all of my income. So the solo show that I have to keep is Podcast Answer Man. And when I think about what my previous decision was to make Podcast Answer Man a podcast about podcasting, the ins and outs of podcasting, the technical stuff of podcasting this, podcasting that. And then I'm like, no, that takes the soul out of me. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can do that. Maybe I can just go ahead and continue to create that and see the vlog as the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And I'm thinking, no, when I think of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, I still think I need to create an audio podcast where once a week I do come with more polished thoughts, kind of like what I'm doing here right now. So that's exactly what I want to do, but I want to do it with things that are valuable and important to me outside of the world of podcasting. I'm not saying to the exclusion of the technical sides of podcasting, but I want to create content that goes beyond just podcasting. And that's what I've been doing for the longest time, and you guys know that anyway. I know that a majority, like 95% of you, either already have a podcast or have zero desire to ever create a podcast. You just listen to this show to hear me talk about whatever's on my heart. You find it entertaining when I communicate through my weekly show here. You find it educational, not always in the podcasting technical side of things, but educational about business, educational about social media, educational about all these other things. Kind of like last week. Last week wasn't about podcasting. It was about Snapchat. But is that valuable for every podcaster out there to know how to use Snapchat? Yeah, I think so. But I wanted to talk about more than just podcasting. And so I'm like, you know what? And then I have, if I start talking about that other stuff, I'm just asking for more 1-star reviews because it's called the Podcast Answer Man. If I talk about those other things, then I'm just, I'm like, you know what? When I think about my future, when I think about where I'm going to be in 10 to 20 years from now, I have a very clear picture of what that looks like. Now, I don't know if it'll come into reality the way that I picture it, but I have a pretty clear picture of where I'm going to be 10 to 20 years from now. It's a dream. It's a vision of that I have of the future. Just to give you an overview of this, I will tell you that it involves speaking to large crowds of people, and I'm talking about crowds much larger than I've ever spoken to in my speaking experience up to this point. And in fact, the size of the crowds that I'm thinking of that I will be speaking in front of, to think about that just scares me to death. I'm like, I don't even understand anything that I have of value that would be worthy of that many people's attention from the stage. I just can't even envision that right now. But I feel like that's a part of my future. And also, 10, 20 years from now, I don't think that when people hear the name Cliff Ravenscraft, I don't think podcasting is going to be the first thing that comes to their mind. I think that they'll think of things like encouragement, and he's a motivational guy. He's a guy who can help you take your mindset to the next level. He can help you take your message to the next level. He's going to help you take your business to the next level. He can even help you take your life overall to the next level. The closest person I can think of who's doing something and has been doing something that I think that I might be heading in the direction of, and it sounds crazy for me to even put myself into this person's realm, but it'd be Tony Robbins. The kind of stuff that Tony Robbins does, I envision myself doing 10 to 20 years from now. And it's crazy for me to think of that, but it's something that won't go away. So regardless of what you might think about it, and even regardless of what I might think of it, the reality is I can't shake this vision of the future. And not that I've tried, but I certainly haven't actively pursued it yet, although I'm starting to move in that direction. And I believe that I almost moved in that direction recently when I decided to come down here a couple weeks ago and announce officially at the spur of the moment that I was shutting down the Pursuing a Balanced Life podcast and I was rebranding this podcast as the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. And then I decided not to. Now, the interesting thing is recently I saw a tweet from my friend Aaron Walker. By the way, he's VFT Coach is his, and I think that's View from the Top is what it's called. But anyway, VFT Coach on Twitter, he says this: we invariably revert to what is known and familiar, and the taste of greatness escapes us. And that's exactly what I felt was happening. I feel like I have several times had this taste of greatness about this thing that's coming in the future. I have a taste for what's to come. And it's exciting. Scary as all get out. It's going to require so much more growth of me it's going to require a lot of emotional growth on my part. It's going to require a lot of growth when it comes to my mindset. It's going to require growth in my self-discipline. It's going to require growth in every freaking area of my life. And it's not going to be comfortable. A lot of it's going to be painful growth. But it's something that, again, goes back to that quote that I live by. My late friend, Dr. David Foster, said, "I don't need easy, I just need worth it." And there are times when I get this glimpse of the greatness that is ahead of me, But then I'm tempted to invariably revert to what is known and familiar. I'm tempted to just revert right back to the same 4-week podcasting A to Z course, 4 to 6 of those a year, every year. Just knock that out for the next 10, 15 years, Cliff. Dude, you're doing well. Just stick with what's known. Stick with what's familiar. Stick with the things that you know work. Why should they need something else that expensive from you in any other field other than podcasting? Because that's what's known. It's what's familiar. It's what they know you for. Stick with Podcast Answer Man, Cliff. And these are the little voices that run through my head. And when I saw that tweet from Aaron Walker, and by the way, Aaron, I don't know if you're listening to this podcast. I hope that some of our mutual friends will tell you if I forget to reach out to you and tell you that I've given you and your tweet a major plug here in the podcast. But anyway, his words spoke to me. I saw it on Twitter. I was just flipping through, and all of a sudden I saw, we invariably revert to what is known and familiar, and the taste of greatness escapes us. And you know what? Keeping the Podcast Answer Man as the Podcast Answer Man is doing what is familiar and what is known. And I know that if I consistently avoid this pursuit of the bigger things that I believe that God has in store for me, here's the deal. I feel called to something bigger and way beyond the scope of podcasting. And I'm not saying I'm bigger than podcasting. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that for me, my message for this world is not limited to podcasting. Okay, that's what I meant to say. My message to the world isn't let me help you create a podcast. My message to the world is let me encourage you through the content that I'm creating to become all that you were created to be. That's who I am. Now, I told you there were 2 things that led to my decision to change my content strategy moving forward drastically. I said Snapchat and my trip to New Zealand. I feel like I really learned some things about myself while I was in New Zealand. For those who are relatively new to this podcast, and maybe you haven't heard some of the most recent episodes that I'm referring to here, I was recently invited to do the keynote address for the very first Asia Pacific Podcast Conference in Auckland, New Zealand. And the cool thing is that nearly half of those people at the conference had never heard of me before. Many of them were actually brand new to podcasting. They were kind of there to learn a little bit more about what podcasting is and what it might be able to do for them and their businesses. And the reason I find that this was so cool is that during my one-on-one conversations with many of the folks while I was there, I was asked to share a bit more about who I am and what it is that I do. And guys, I'm not used to having to do that when I go to these conferences. When I go to Podcast Movement, when I go to Social Media Marketing World, I don't ever have anybody, so tell me, Cliff, who are you and what do you do? That's a question that just doesn't come up. I mean, everybody knows I'm the Podcast Answer Man. I've deemed that 2016 is the year of identity. This is the year where I'm trying to find out, who am I in this next season of life? You know, for the past 10 years, I've clearly been the Podcast Answer Man. And I believe for the foreseeable future, I will continue to have people know me and even know myself and fully accept and embrace that I am the Podcast Answer Man. By the way, just want to say, for the record, right here, podcastanswerman.com. Not going anywhere. Cliff Ravenscraft being the Podcast Answer Man, not going anywhere. Podcasting A to Z for the foreseeable future, at least for the rest of this year and all of next year, isn't going anywhere just yet. And maybe never. I don't know that yet. I can't see, but certainly for this year and next year, there'll be some podcasting A to Zs, okay? I want to tell you that I'm not leaving podcasting. I am still the Podcast Answer Man. The name of this podcast, however, is The Cliff Ravenscraft Show. That's the only thing that's changing. And the reason why the name of the show is changing is because I'm not just talking about podcasting here. And I no longer want to get 1-star reviews just because the content that I share in this podcast doesn't match the name. And from this point forward, I can guarantee you that the content of every episode from this point forward of this podcast will match the title of the show, because the show's title is The Cliff Ravenscraft Show, and the content is going to be all the stuff that Cliff Ravenscraft gives you. All right, so there you go. Okay, back to New Zealand. So people are asking me, Cliff, who are you? Tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do? I can't believe I haven't heard of you now. I mean, everybody here seems to know you and stuff like that. So tell me more about what you do. And it was so fun to try to share with these people who I am, because I'm working that out. And that's exactly what I said to them. I'm trying to figure that out this year. And I explained to them, up to this point, everybody out there, it seems that they know me as the podcast answer man, and that certainly is a fitting description of who I am, and it's a part of my identity at this point. But I've been looking at potentially branching out, and I find that I have a greater message that I feel called to put into this world, and that message has been, and it's very clear to me, that who I am and my mission, my purpose in this world is to entertain people, to educate people, to encourage people, and to inspire people. Those four things are what I am called to do with my life. And how I'm supposed to do that is by creating content. And what's the source of the content that I'm called to create? The source of the content is my life experiences, the things that I am experiencing in my life, and the things that I'm learning through this journey that I'm on. It's the books that I'm reading. It's the relationships that I'm building. It's the business that I'm building. All of this stuff, just day by day stuff, the things that I'm picking up, anything that I am experiencing or learning or discovering or interacting with, all of this stuff, anything that can be used to entertain others, to educate others, to encourage others, and to inspire others, that's what I'm called to do. I'm called to create content. And by the way, when I say the word content, I don't just mean podcasting, although I will tell you that my favorite form of content to create is podcasting. I'm called to create content based upon my life experiences. And I know that I want to entertain, educate, encourage, and inspire others. And I want to do that to help them take their message, their business, their life to the next level. Specifically, I want to help people in their mindset of what's possible. I want to help them with goal setting and achieving goals. I want to help them overcome obstacles, defy the excuses that they've been settling with for the last several years of their lives, finding ways to get beyond barriers, to come alongside people, to encourage them, to inspire them to take action, and ultimately to help people become all that they were created to be. Now, before New Zealand, all of this was in a text document called My Mission Statement. The reality is I haven't fully embraced the greatness that's out there. I've been settling for what is known and for what is familiar. And what happened was, by these people asking me, who are you, Cliff? What is it that you do? Why are you here? And I know that there's why are you here in New Zealand? Why? But I'm asking the question, why am I here on this earth, right? And so I get the opportunity to share this with people. And as a result of sharing it, not just with 1, 2, 3, but about 15, 20 people over the course of 10 days while I'm in New Zealand, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, this is who I am. This is who I'm created to be. This is my future. This is what I'm going to do. By God, and I would get excited about it. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to go back home and I'm going to be who I'm created to be. But yet still tempted to stay and not change anything, to just go with what's known and predictable and all of those other things. And I'm here to say in this episode, I am not going to stay the same. I am not going to stay with what's familiar and predictable. Instead, I am changing. I am moving forward, and I am embracing the new identity. And that, my friends, is why this podcast from this point forward will be known as The Cliff Ravenscraft Show. Yes, I am still the podcast answer man. Yes, I will still run podcastanswerman.com. And yes, there will still be podcasting A to Z courses. but I am embracing something bigger that's coming down the road. And changing the branding of this podcast is the first step into a bold new world. I think some people might get that. Anyway, just wanted to let you guys know what the reasoning was behind this. Not that I owed anyone an explanation or that I felt like I needed to defend my reasoning for why I'm doing all of this, but the reason why I've shared the past 38 minutes or so of this podcast, what I've shared with you, is because I wanted to invite you into my mindset. I wanted to invite you into my thoughts about how I'm thinking about where I've been, what's got me to where I am today, and how that might not be what gets me to where I need to go moving forward in the life that I feel called to live. And to share with you guys how I am in this very transitional season of life. And moving forward, this podcast is going to feature a lot more information about the next steps in this journey. It's going to be sharing with you about the things that I'm doing and exploring during this year of identity. I imagine that in future episodes, you'll be hearing me talk about how I am creating some online courses that are going to be more self-study and how I might look at the possibility of how I can build Podcast Answer Man products and services so that they don't rely on me all of the time. I plan to share with you my thought process as I consider the various options that are before me when it comes to adding team members. Do I add contracted workers? Do I add employees? What does that look like? How do I compensate those people if I decide to do that? The things that I'm going to be learning through that process. I've actually just signed up for a brand new software system that's going to manage all of my online courses. And for the very first time, this program is going to allow me to have an affiliate program an official affiliate program where people will have links that will be automatically tracked. And this system will have the ability for me to easily go in and pay all of my affiliates via PayPal. That's the kind of content that I want to share with you. I'm going to share with you the things that I'm doing to grow this business to the next level, to grow my message to the next level, to grow my life to the next level. And so moving forward, a lot of this podcast, this content is going to be about that journey. And if you are a podcaster who is podcasting and growing a little bit of a business on the side, or if you already have your own business, you're self-employed, you're a solopreneur, it is my hope that the things that I will share will be valuable to you, that it will encourage you and inspire you in your own journey. For those of you who have a podcast and you don't currently have a business, perhaps over this process, you might think, well, gosh, if Cliff can do it, I can too. I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying that it might happen. And for those of you who are listening to me right now and you don't have a podcast and you never plan to have a podcast and you don't have a business and you don't ever plan to have a business, I'm just thrilled that you're listening to me right now. I think it's incredibly awesome. And I want to invite you to continue to listen and follow this journey as I move along. I mean, the fact that if all of those things are true about you and you're still listening to me right now, I have no doubt that you're going to continue to listen. But if there's any one concern that I have is this. I need to let everyone know that for the foreseeable future, Podcast Answer Man still is my main identity, and it is my main source of income. So please continue to spread the word about podcasting A to Z. Please continue to spread the word about podcastanswerman.com, the website. And yes, if anybody who's thinking about creating a podcast, please continue to tell them to check out this podcast. But when you tell them to go and check out this podcast and saying, hey, you need to listen to the Podcast Answer Man podcast, instead of saying that, say, you need to check out the Cliff Ravenscraft show. It's hosted by Cliff Ravenscraft, who's known as the Podcast Answer Man. He's trained thousands of people in the world like Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas, Michael Hyatt, Dan Miller, Amy Porterfield, and so many other top-ranked podcasters. You need to listen to the Cliff Ravenscraft show. He's the guy to go to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level. If you're looking to create a podcast, that's the guy you want to go talk to. I hope that you guys will continue to do that, even though that this podcast is called the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. Now, there is one other thing I want to tell you. Remember I told you that I shut down the other podcast that was formerly Pursuing a Balanced Life, which had been rebranded to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show, which is now merged into this one. Well, after 659 episodes of that podcast, it has come to an end. However, that podcast feed has been taken over by a brand new podcast, which is called the Cliff EOTC Vlog. That's right. Those Snapchat stories, how I've been downloading them and then uploading them to YouTube. Well, now that I've gone to landscape video, and I'm very confident that it actually looks great on a video podcast app, I have decided to officially release my vlog as a video podcast. And you can go find it in iTunes right now. Just look for the Cliff EOTC Vlog. You will find it in there. If you were to subscribe to the Cliff EOTC Vlog video podcast feed, what you're going to see is a behind-the-scenes look into what's going on in my life on a daily basis. And typically, and my goal moving forward, is that my life of what's going on, an entire day will be summed up in about 5 to 7 minutes. That's my goal. And inside there, you're going to see the type of things that I do in my day, how I structure my day, how late I work, how do I fit in my fitness routine and spending time with family. You're going to see little bits and pieces like technology tips and little secret tools and apps that I use and all kinds of other things. And if any of that sounds interesting to you, I hope that you will consider subscribing to my vlog as well as this podcast moving forward. But yeah, that's my announcement. That's the episode for this week. And I really appreciate each and every one of you who will continue to move forward with me, even though this is no longer just a podcast about podcasting. Will I continue to talk about things related to podcasting? Yes. I will talk to you guys next week about the changes being made to iTunes. It's not that big of a deal. For those of you who already have a podcast, you really don't need to worry about much of anything. But there are some things that I need to let you guys know about. And that'll take me all of about 5 minutes or less next week. In fact, that's my commitment, is that I'll spend 5 or less minutes on just those announcements. Matter of fact, anybody who has a podcast actually already has received an email from Apple related to these changes. So it's not like you desperately need to hear it from me. But I'll share it next week. And before I go, I have to let you know that my next session of Podcasting A to Z is coming up in less than 10 days on Monday, March 14th. It is my 24th session of Podcasting A to Z. I currently, as I'm recording this, have 10 students signed up, and I'm spending all day tomorrow, or the day that this is actually being released, which is Friday, March 5th. I'll be spending all day tomorrow following up with about 55 people who at one point have told me, Cliff, I want to take your course. Please keep letting me know when the next one's coming up. Well, I'm going to be reaching out to all of those people tomorrow, and I do expect to fill this session up to its capacity. But if you want to get in to Podcasting A to Z, if you are thinking about creating a podcast and you would like to have me as your personal coach, walking you through step by step, and also providing you direct access to me for an entire 4-week period of time where you can ask me an unlimited number of questions, and my commitment to you that I will answer every single question you submit to me. If that sounds appealing, head over to podcastinga2z.com and get registered today. Some of you who are listening are thinking, wow, I've been thinking about doing that and taking that. And just so you know, it's starting in just under 10 days on Monday, March 14th. Guys, thank you so much for hanging in here with me. And of course, I'll be back next Friday at 5 a.m. with another episode of The Cliff Ravenscraft Show. Until then, I encourage you to take everything you do in life to the next level.
Helping you take everything you do to the next level.